Russia's 160 ethnic groups speak some 100 languages. Russia's is the only official state language, but the constitution gives the individual republics the right to make their own native languages co-official next to Russian. Russian literature is considered to be among the most influential and developed in the world, with some of the most famous literary works belonging to it. Alexander Pushkin is often considered the founder of modern Russian literature, and is often described as the Russian Shakespeare. Russian writers Leo Tolstoy and Fyodor Dostoevsky are often considered some of the greatest novelists ever. By the 1800s, Russian literature began to change. The age of novels began to change to short fiction and poetry. The writing style changed from one dominated by realism to one dominated by symbolism. After the Russian Revolution in 1917, Russian literature was left in chaos. Many great writers even left the country. When Joseph Stalin led the country in the 1930s, literature was highly censored. Literature in the Soviet era was the golden age of Russian science fiction. Some Russian writers like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky are also known as philosophers, while many more authors are known primarily for their philosophical works. Russian philosophy blossomed since the 19th century, when it was defined initially by the argument of whether Russia should follow the Western political and economical models or develop its own unique civilization. Russian philosophy was also marked by a deep connection to literature and interest in creativity, society, politics, and nationalism. Russian architecture began with woodcraft buildings and was predominantly influenced by the Byzantine architecture. Apart from fortifications, the main stone buildings of ancient Russia were Orthodox churches. The 16th century saw a change in architecture due to Italian architects bringing Renaissance trends into Russia. After Peter the Great made many reforms to the country to make it more like Western culture, the change of the architectural styles in the country generally followed that of Western Europe. After Stalin's death, a new Soviet leader, Nikita Khrushchev, condemned the former more complex and extravagant architectural styles, and in the late Soviet era, the architecture of the country was dominated by plain functionalism. He believed that a building should be designed based on the purpose of the building itself. This, however, ended with the Soviet Union. There were three main types of art in Russia. Russian icons are typically paintings on wood, often small, though some in churches and monasteries may be as large as a tabletop. In the early 19th century, when classical art flourished, famous academic artists focused on mythological and biblical themes. Realism came into dominance in the 19th century. The realists captured Russian identity in landscapes of wide rivers, forests, and birch clearings, as well as vigorous genre scenes and robust portraits of their contemporaries. The Mighty Handful is a group of prominent Russian composers that wanted to establish a uniquely Russian style of music. Russian music incorporated Russian folk songs and different harmonic devices, which made it a unique form of music. The original purpose of the ballet in Russia was to entertain the imperial court. First ballet company was the Imperial School of Ballet in St. Petersburg in the 1740s. Many Russian ballet dancers rose to international fame. The first known opera made in Russia was A Life for the Tsar by Mikhail Glinka in 1836. This was soon followed by many other operas. During the Russian Revolution, many opera composers left Russia. Russian cuisine composed mainly of fish, poultry, mushrooms, berries, and honey. Vodka made from potatoes is a common alcoholic beverage.